Hey everyone, Elizabeth here. The Last Laugh delivers stories that leave you speechless. If you're here for it, hit subscribe and let's go.
My name is Elena Rodriguez, and for 28 years I'd been the family disappointment. Not because I'd failed at anything. Because I hadn't succeeded in the ways my family understood. My sister Mariana was a corporate attorney at a prestigious firm in downtown Chicago. Six-figure salary, corner office, designer suits. My brother Carlos was a cardiac surgeon. 7 figures, published researcher, invited to speak at medical conferences worldwide. Me. I was still figuring things out. That's what Dad told his golf buddies. That's what Mom said at church. That's what Mariana explained to her colleagues when they asked about her family. Elena's still figuring things out. The truth was more complicated. I'd graduated from MIT at 21 with a degree in computer science and a minor in cryptography. I'd been recruited by 3 different tech companies before graduation. I'd chosen the one nobody had heard of, a small government contractor doing cybersecurity work. "You're working for the government?" Dad had said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Elena, with your grades you could have gone to Google, Facebook, somewhere that actually pays." "I like the work," I'd said simply. "The work," Mariana had scoffed. "You're making what, 60,000? 70? I made more than that as a first-year associate." I'd said nothing. My actual salary was $185,000, but I'd learned early that correcting my family only made things worse. They'd built a narrative about me, and facts that contradicted that narrative were dismissed as lies or exaggerations. So I let them believe what they wanted to believe. I lived in a small apartment in Arlington, Virginia. Drove a 7-year-old Honda Civic. Wore jeans and hoodies. Declined their offers to help me get on my feet. What they didn't know was that my entry-level government job had evolved significantly over 6 years. I'd been promoted 4 times. I now led a team of 12 analysts working on financial crimes investigations, specifically tracking international money laundering operations and domestic fraud schemes. My security clearance was top secret/SCI. My actual salary was $340,000, not counting bonuses. And I'd been very, very good at my job. Good enough that 2 years ago, the FBI had brought me in as a consultant on a major identity theft ring. Good enough that I'd helped build the software now used by 6 different federal agencies to detect fraudulent loan applications. Good enough that I'd noticed something disturbing in my own credit report 18 months ago. It started with a routine security clearance renewal. Every 5 years they dig deep, financial records, credit history, any foreign contacts. Standard procedure for anyone with my level of access. The investigator had called me in for a follow-up interview. "Ms. Rodriguez, I need to ask you about some irregularities in your credit report." My stomach had dropped. Irregularities in your credit report could cost you your clearance, your job, your career. What kind of irregularities? "You have 4 credit cards we can't verify you actually opened. The applications show your signature, your social security number, your address. But the spending patterns don't match your other accounts, and the bills are being sent to a different address in Illinois. Where my parents lived. Can I see the applications?" I'd asked, my voice steady despite the ice forming in my chest. He'd slid the documents across the table. I'd recognized my signature immediately, because it wasn't my signature. It was close. Very close. Someone who'd practiced copying my handwriting, who had access to my personal information. Someone who knew me very well. The applications had been submitted over a 3-year period. The cards had balances totaling $189,000. None of the charges were mine. "I need to make a call," I'd said. I'd called Marcus Chin, a forensic accountant I'd worked with on federal cases. He owed me several favors. "Marcus, I need a deep dive on my entire family's financial history. Parents, siblings, everyone. And I need it yesterday." "How deep?" "Everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, loans, mortgages, business dealings. Everything." It had taken him 2 weeks. The report was 247 pages long. I'd read it in my apartment alone with a bottle of wine I never opened. My parents' situation was worse than I'd imagined. Dad had retired 5 years ago from his position as a regional sales manager. His pension was modest, $3,200 monthly. Mom had never worked outside the home. Their expenses, based on their lifestyle, were approximately $8,500 monthly. The math didn't work. It had never worked. But I'd found where the difference came from. Starting 7 years ago, someone had been making monthly payments into my parents' checking account. Wire transfers always on the first of the month. Amounts varied. $2,400 here, $3,100 there. Over 7 years, the total was $291,000. The transfers came from an LLC I'd never heard of. It took Marcus 3 days to trace it back to its actual owner. Me. Or rather, someone using my identity, my social security number, my forged signature to create a limited liability company that existed solely to funnel money to my parents. But where was that money coming from? Marcus had found that too. Loans. Dozens of them. Personal loans, business loans, home equity lines of credit. All in my name using my credit, my income documentation forged, my signature forged. The total was $480,000. Someone had stolen nearly $500,000 in my name to fund my parents' lifestyle. But the report got worse. My sister Mariana's law firm's salary was real. $240,000 annually. Impressive. But her mortgage was $4,800 monthly for a house in Lincoln Park. Her car payments were $1,900 for a Mercedes she couldn't actually afford. Her country club membership was $18,000 annually. The gap was being filled by the same LLC. Another $2,200 monthly for the past 4 years. Total, $105,600. Carlos, my brother, was slightly better off. His surgeon's salary was genuine. But his second home in Lake Geneva? The boat. The private school tuition for his 2 kids at $35,000 per year each? Same forged identity. Another $147,000 over 5 years. My entire family's success, their homes, their cars, their lifestyle, was built on loans taken out in my name. I'd sat in my apartment until 3 a.m. staring at the pages, trying to understand how this had happened. How my own parents could do this. How my siblings could accept the money without questioning where it came from. Then I'd called my supervisor at work. I need to report a crime, I'd said. Against me. The investigation took 14 months. I couldn't tell my family. FBI policy, and honestly I wasn't ready to face them. I played my role. The disappointing daughter, the one who never quite measured up, the one they occasionally remembered to invite to family events. All while federal agents built a case against my parents. They'd been clever. The loans had been taken out slowly, carefully from different institutions. The applications had been submitted online, harder to trace. The money had been moved through the LLC, creating a layer of separation. But they'd made mistakes. IP addresses traced back to my parents' home computer. Security footage from a bank in Oak Park showing my mother at a notary, forging my signature on a loan document. Email correspondence between my parents and Mariana discussing Elena's contribution to the family. That one had hurt the most. Make sure Elena doesn't find out about the transfers. She'd probably make a scene about it. You know how she is about money. How I was about money. As if I was the problem. As if wanting to not have my identity stolen was somehow unreasonable. The FBI had wanted to move quickly, but I'd asked them to wait. My father's 65th birthday is in 6 weeks, I'd said. They're having a party. Big event, all their friends, the whole family. Can we wait until then? The lead agent, a woman named Sarah Morrison, had looked at me carefully. That's a bold choice. They've been bold for 7 years, I'd said. I'm just returning the favor. It arrived 3 weeks before the party. A paper invitation, expensive cardstock, my mother's careful handwriting. Join us for Robert Rodriguez's 65th birthday celebration. Backyard barbecue. Keep it simple, no pressure. I'd stared at those words. Keep it simple. No pressure. The same words they'd used when I graduated from MIT. No pressure, Elena. Not everyone can be as successful as your sister. The same words when I bought my small apartment. Keep it simple, Elena. Some people aren't meant for luxury. My sister had texted me separately. Dad's friends are all retired executives. Try to dress nicely. Maybe borrow something from me? And please don't talk about your job. Nobody wants to hear about government work at a party. I'd replied, understood. Then I'd called Agent Morrison. I'll need you there at 2 p.m. The party starts at noon. Give them 2 hours of celebration before we do this. You're sure about this? She'd asked. I'm sure. I spent the next 3 weeks preparing. Not for the confrontation, the FBI had that handled. But for what came after. I contacted a civil attorney specializing in identity theft. I filed for protective orders on all my credit accounts. I documented everything. Every dismissive comment, every joke about my failures, every time they'd spent my money while calling me financially irresponsible. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it for justice. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking forward to seeing their faces. June 15th arrived sunny and warm. Perfect weather for a backyard barbecue. I drove to my parents' house in Oak Park. The house I'd learned was partially financed by a home equity loan in my name. The house they'd refinanced twice using my forged signature as a co-borrower. The backyard was decorated with balloons and banners. Happy 65th birthday, Robert. In cheerful letters. Tables set up with food, a bar in the corner, a DJ playing oldies. 50, maybe 60 people. My parents' friends, my siblings and their families, extended relatives I barely knew. I'd worn what I always wore. Jeans, a nice blouse, simple jewelry. I'd parked my Honda next to Mariana's Mercedes and Carlos's BMW. Mom had spotted me immediately. Elena. You made it. Her smile was bright but her eyes were already scanning my outfit with barely concealed disappointment. Oh honey, I wish you'd dressed up a little more. I told you Dad's friends are all here. This is dressed up for me, I'd said evenly. Dad had given me a hug, the kind that felt more obligatory than warm. Good to see you, Mija. How's the government job? Still there. Well, someday you'll find something better. He'd patted my shoulder. Your brother just got published in another medical journal. Maybe he can give you some career advice. I'd smiled. Maybe. Mariana had appeared elegant in a sundress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Or would have if she'd actually paid for it herself. Elena. So glad you came. Come meet some people. Try to make a good impression, okay? I'd let her lead me around, introducing me as my little sister. She works for the government. The same apologetic tone every time, as if she was explaining away an embarrassment. I'd smiled, made small talk, ate potato salad and waited. At 1:45 p.m. I'd excused myself to the bathroom. Instead I'd walked to the front of the house and sent a text, ready. At 2 p.m. exactly, 2 black SUVs pulled up to the curb. I'd returned to the backyard just as Agent Morrison and her partner, Agent Davis, came through the side gate. They weren't in casual clothes. They were in full FBI attire, suits, badges displayed, professional and unmistakable. The party noise had faded gradually as people noticed them. First the people near the gate, then spreading outward like ripples in water, until the DJ cut the music and 50 people were staring at 2 federal agents standing in my parents' backyard. Agent Morrison's voice had carried clearly across the yard. We're looking for Ms. Elena Rodriguez. Every head had turned toward me. I'd raised my hand slightly. That's me. They'd walked directly to where I stood. Agent Morrison had smiled, professional and cool. Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for coordinating with us. We need to speak with your parents, Robert and Carmen Rodriguez. Are they here? My father had pushed forward through the crowd, his face already red. I'm Robert Rodriguez. What's this about? This is a private party. Mr. Rodriguez, I'm Special Agent Sarah Morrison with the FBI Financial Crimes Division. We have a warrant for your arrest. She'd produced a document from her jacket. You're being charged with identity theft, wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The backyard had gone absolutely silent. My mother had appeared beside Dad, her face pale. What? This is insane. There must be some mistake. Mrs. Carmen Rodriguez? Agent Davis had stepped forward. We have a warrant for your arrest as well. Same charges. Dad's face had gone from red to purple. This is ridiculous. On what grounds? What evidence? Agent Morrison had looked at me. With your permission? I'd nodded. She'd opened a folder she'd been carrying. Over the past 7 years, you and your wife have fraudulently obtained $480,000 in loans using your daughter Elena's identity, social security number and forged signatures. You created an LLC in her name to funnel this money to yourselves, your daughter Mariana and your son Carlos. We have documentation of every transaction, Every forged signature, every fraudulent application. Dad had started. We have security footage of your wife at First National Bank forging Elena's signature, Agent Morrison had continued. We have IP addresses from your home computer matching the online loan applications. We have email correspondence between you and your daughter Mariana discussing Elena's contribution to the family. Mariana had gasped behind me. Dad. We also have testimony from Elena herself, who had no knowledge of any of these transactions and has been making her own mortgage payments, car payments, and living expenses while you destroyed her credit rating. My father had turned to me and I'd seen something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Genuine fear. Elena, this is a misunderstanding. We were going to tell you, we were helping the family. You were helping yourselves, I'd said quietly. With my money. My credit. My identity. You weren't using it. Mom had burst out, tears starting. You live in that tiny apartment, you drive that old car, you never spend money on anything. We just thought. You thought because I chose to live modestly, you were entitled to steal from me? Carlos had stepped forward, his surgeon's confidence crumbling. Elena, I didn't know. I thought Mom and Dad were just helping us out. With loans in my name? That I'll be paying off for years? That destroyed my credit score? That almost cost me my security clearance. Agent Morrison had given them a moment. Then continued. Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez, you need to come with us now. Wait. Mariana had shouted. She'd pushed through the crowd to stand in front of our parents. This is insane. Elena, you can't do this. They're our parents. They're also criminals. Over money? You're going to send our parents to prison over money? I'd met her eyes steadily. $480,000 isn't just money, Mariana. It's identity theft. Fraud. It's federal crimes that carry sentences of 5 to 20 years each. You could forgive them. You could drop the charges. I didn't press charges, I'd said. The United States government did. Once the FBI discovered the fraud during my security clearance investigation, it became a federal matter. This isn't about forgiveness. This is about felonies. Dad had tried one more time. Elena, please. I'm 65 years old. Your mother is 62. You can't do this to us. I'd felt something crack inside me, but my voice had stayed steady. I didn't do this to you. You did this to yourselves. For 7 years you stole from me. You forged my signature. You destroyed my credit. You let me think I was the family disappointment while you built your success on my stolen identity. We gave you life. Mom had screamed. We raised you. Fed you. Paid for your education. You paid for my education with student loans in my name that I paid off myself. Every penny. I have the bank statements. Agent Davis had stepped forward with handcuffs. Mr. Rodriguez, please put your hands behind your back. No. My father had backed away. This is my birthday party. These are my friends. You can't do this here. We can and we are, Agent Morrison had said. You can cooperate or we can add resisting arrest to the charges. I'd watched as they handcuffed my father. My mother had collapsed into a chair, sobbing. The party guests had stood frozen, some with phones out, recording everything. Mariana had turned on me, her face twisted with fury. You planned this. You planned to humiliate them in front of everyone. They planned to fund their lifestyle with my identity, I'd replied. I just made sure there were witnesses when the consequences arrived. Carlos had been on his phone, probably calling a lawyer. Some of Dad's retired executive friends had quietly started leaving. My uncle had tried to approach the agents, demanding they show some respect. But Agent Morrison had calmly explained that respect didn't override federal warrants. As they'd led my parents through the side gate, Dad had looked back at me one last time. How could you do this to your own family? I'd met his eyes. I learned from the best. The arrests made the news. Suburban couple arrested for $480,000 identity theft against their own daughter. My phone exploded with calls from relatives. Some angry, some shocked, some asking if I needed anything. I'd ignored most of them. Mariana and Carlos had tried to visit me. I'd refused to see them. My attorney had sent them formal letters. They had 30 days to return the money they'd received from the fraudulent LLC or face civil lawsuits. The amounts: $105,600 for Mariana, $147,000 for Carlos. Neither of them had known the money was from fraud, my attorney believed. But they'd accepted it without questions, and that had consequences too. The preliminary hearing was set for 8 weeks later. My parents' attorney had tried to negotiate a plea deal. They'd plead guilty to reduce charges, pay restitution, avoid jail time. I'd told Agent Morrison I'd consider it if they paid back every penny with interest and served at least 2 years of probation with community service. That's generous, she'd said. That's justice, I'd replied. My credit was being repaired. Slowly. The FBI had provided documentation to the credit bureaus proving fraud. The loans were being discharged or transferred to my parents' names. It would take time, but I'd recover. My security clearance was safe. If anything, my handling of the situation, reporting it immediately, cooperating fully with the investigation, had impressed my superiors. I'd received a commendation letter from the agency director. 3 weeks after the arrest, I'd received an email from Dad. Just 2 lines. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I hadn't replied. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I'd also received a package from Mariana. A check for $105,600 along with a note. I didn't know where the money came from. I should have asked. I'm sorry I called you the family disappointment. You're the only one who actually made something of yourself, honestly. I hope someday you can forgive me. I'd deposited the check. I'd kept the note. Carlos had sent a check too, along with a longer letter about how he'd been so focused on his career that he'd stopped paying attention to the family dynamics. How he'd believed their narrative about me without questioning it. How he was ashamed. I'd kept his letter too. My parents took a plea deal. Guilty to multiple counts of identity theft and fraud. 2 years in federal prison followed by 5 years of supervised release. Full restitution of $480,000, which they were paying through the forced sale of their house, their cars, and garnishment of Dad's pension. The house in Oak Park sold for $890,000. After paying off the legitimate mortgage and the fraudulent home equity loans, there was enough left to cover about half of what they owed me. They'd be making payments for the rest of their lives. Mariana had been suspended from her law firm for 6 months while they investigated whether she'd known about the fraud. She'd been cleared but had quietly resigned. She'd taken a position at a smaller firm, lower salary, rebuilding her reputation. Carlos had kept his job but had sold the Lake Geneva house and the boat. His kids were in public school now. He'd called me once to apologize. We'd talked for an hour. It was a start. I'd kept my job, kept my apartment, kept my Honda. But I'd also started saying yes to things. Dinner with colleagues. Drinks with friends. A weekend trip to New York. The small luxuries I'd denied myself while my family lived large on stolen money. I'd also started therapy. Processing what had happened, what it meant, how to rebuild trust. In my family, in myself, in the world. My therapist had asked me once if I regretted how I'd handled it. The public arrest, the timing, the drama. I'd thought about it for a long time. No, I'd finally said. They stole from me in secret for 7 years. They deserved to face consequences publicly. Maybe it was harsh. But it was fair. And your relationship with them? Might never recover, I'd admitted. But at least now it's honest. On my 29th birthday, I'd received a card from my mother. Sent from federal prison where she and Dad were serving their sentences. Happy birthday, Elena. I'm so sorry for everything. You deserved better from us. You deserved better than everything we did. I hope someday you can forgive me, but I understand if you can't. You were never the disappointment. We were. Love, Mom. I'd put the card on my refrigerator. I hadn't forgiven them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'd stopped being angry. And I'd started being proud. Proud of the work I did. The life I built. The integrity I maintained even when no one was watching. The strength it took to report my own parents to the FBI. I wasn't the family disappointment. I was the only one who'd actually succeeded, honestly. And that was enough.